Good day, folks. This is Shane Hensby for the InfoQ Engineering Culture Podcast. Today, I'm sitting down in a virtual space with the folks from Moderne, who are using virtual reality in developer collaboration. So I'm just going to let the conversation go as it goes. Jonathan, do you want to kick us off, introduce yourself, and then let's see who's around this virtual table?
Sure, yeah. Thanks for having us, Shane. It's a pleasure. So, yeah, I'm Jonathan, one of the co-founders of Moderne, and we're a software shop. We build automatic software, repair, refactoring for enterprise customers, and we're about a little over 10 people now and scattered all about. And maybe you could each introduce yourself and where you're at in the world, because you'll see that while we appear to be close together, we're not very much in reality. So, Pat?
I'm Pat. I've been with Moderne for a little over a year now. Work mostly on the open source side. I'm in Chico, California, which is in the northern Sacramento Valley of California. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
And I'm Tyler, and I'm in Portland, Oregon. I've been with Moderne for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in this fall. So anyway, yeah, super fun.
Where are you based?
Portland. Yeah,
okay.
I said
sorry. My bad.
I'm Kevin. I've been with Moderne for just over a year, and I'm normally based in Texas, but right now I'm in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I've been here for 2 weeks, and I'll be here for another month and a half.
I'm John. I'm about a year. I'm the other John at JON as well, Jonathan. So sometimes need to be more specific than just John whenever you're talking. So, but I live in rural Southwest Missouri, actually. So,
cool. And I'm Kyle. I've been here almost a year, and software engineer as well. I am out of Sacramento, California.
So, nice to meet you all, gents. And I'm Shane. I'm sitting in a little town called Otaki in New Zealand, so a fair way away from you gents.
Yeah.
And it's tomorrow, and I can tell you the weather forecast is clear and sunny. And looking at the sunlight streaming into your room, your virtual room there, it looks like your room is sunny too. So,
Yeah.
What I see is a virtual table. And I'm guessing that we all see the same thing. Something I also see is avatars. How realistic to you are those avatars?
They're pretty close.
Yeah.
Really, like if I look at any of them, I would know exactly who they are, even if I'd never seen the avatar before.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We did spend some time, probably each of us, going through the various options that, tweaking on the face shape and the eye shape and the hair color, or no hair in my case. So it's I actually had to have my wife and my daughter help me, because I cast it up on the TV, and so there's 100 different options for very subtle changes, and of course I don't know what I look like, because I don't spend any time looking at myself, so except in Zoom, and so I would just, is it this, and they were like, no, it's a little more like this one. And so, it was a, somewhat time consuming process, but in the end, I think it got reasonably approximately close.
Why VR? Everyone else is just going with Zoom, and we're also seeing asynchronous coming into play. What made you go down the path of VR?
I think honestly we use all three of those. We do async, we do sync, and then we have different tools for different things. And honestly, I was real skeptical when we first said, we're going to go into VR. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of hipstery, but let's try it. And honestly, it's hard to describe until you actually sit in front of you sit in one of these with the Oculus on your head. It is different than Zoom. It feels I don't know, more immersive,
More
for
personal.
sure,
Yeah.
more personal. Yeah, we don't do it all the time. We definitely use Zoom a lot too. So, but just the fact that we're able to like use the whiteboard and stuff, we'll have to show that off. That's kind of interesting. Because we don't have the opportunity to do that, since we're all scattered all over the world, basically. So
From our experience, there is spatial audio, so Tyler does sound like he's over to my right now.
Yes.
And so it's a bit more immersive in really subtle ways that you kind of are used to a more flat Zoom experience. I noticed one of the first team meetings we did in here, Kyle, I think, was sitting next to me. And normally if we're on Zoom, like, nobody knows if you're doing something else on your laptop at any given moment. But here, like when Kyle was speaking, I actually had to face him, or he could tell that I was not actually paying attention to him. So it's just kind of interesting, little things that get lost from in person over those sorts of environments.
So now I'm not present in your virtual space. So how do I appear to you?
You're on like a little screen. It's kind of like you're in a meeting room. Like we're in a meeting room.
Yeah.
And you're remote, and so you're meeting with us remotely.
Yeah, you're
just, like,
projected on the
floating out
wall.
there.
Yeah.
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 You're on a floating TV.
Fortunately, I think that means you can't see the beautiful like ocean behind you.
Not yet. I think
we can change the.
Yeah, we can actually change the configuration.
Move them around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet if we change to the presentation mode. And so there's different modes, actually.
Wow.
I think you can probably see the ocean behind
Now I
us
can
now.
see the ocean.
Yeah, so in this mode, it's, it sets us all up in a row where we can all see the whiteboard in front of us. If somebody was presenting, we can share our screen to the front whiteboard as well. We can show that in a little bit. So there's this mode. If more people join, just another row will appear behind us. So the room scales according to the number of people that are in here to try to give it that cozy feel at any given time. So I know it's
Unless
funny.
you're
One time. Yeah, go ahead, Tyler. Yeah.
Unless you're like the one person that ends up going into the second row, like then you're like the only person back there.
It doesn't rebalance. It just puts one person back there. Poor Aaron.
And then this is the last one. This is almost like the more like formal board table sort of view of the world. So this is
one thing I will say that's different about VR is, like right now, even like I'm kind of a personal space guy, and Jonathan's a little bit too close. Like in real life, I would never allow this. Right? It's like it's too close to me, right? And you sort of get that impression, like it's the feeling a little bit of of someone in your personal space. I think there's actually a setting now, or there will be a setting in some of these. That's like a personal space protection thing, where like if one of the avatars starts to get into your personal space, that it'll automatically keep them out of that. I wish I had that in real life sometimes. I would take that home with me every day.
force fields. Yeah. That's
So-
what we do.
Well, let's geek out a little bit on the technology. What is the technology that is running all of this and doing this for you? What's involved in setting it up?
Go ahead, Tyler. Yeah.
I was gonna say the barrier entry is pretty low. You just have to buy an Oculus, and then honestly, there's some time setting it up. Like there's gonna be a time commitment. I think all of us probably spent an hour or two setting things up. So that was kind of a hassle. But once you do that, it's pretty straightforward. And that's really it. I mean, Oculus.
And there's plenty of options. Like what the way that we chose to do VR is using the Quest 2 headset in particular, and this is their Workrooms application, which is on the Quest, and I don't think it's available on like Rift.
I
So I don't think you could use some of the other ones, and like I don't know if you can use like an HTC or some of these other headsets. So it's pretty specific to Meta's headset. But if you're there's other applications out there that do this sort of conference room or collaborative type thing, and you could use those applications with other headsets than the Quest. So the thing that I like about the Quest is that it's all self-contained, and so even though it's heavier, because it's got all of the processing is happening in the headset, which is limiting on the amount of processing power it can handle, and the number of objects and things that it could track at any given time, which is why you would use a more powerful PC-based one for doing intense gaming or something like that. But for doing collaborative work and being able to see avatars and get that personal feeling that's different in VR than it is in a 2D zoom, then you don't really need a lot of stuff. But then if you wanted to do more than that, if you wanted to do in-depth screen, like there's beyond just like collaborating like we're doing now and talking to one another, there's the ability that like you could actually work in VR if you wanted to put up a screen and you wanted to have multiple screens and you wanted to have browsers open and things like that. You can do that, and there's different apps that do it in different ways, but it requires more setup on your part. It requires in some cases more computing power, so it's sort of like it's like, what do you want to get out of it exactly?
So I think one thing we probably haven't made clear is that we actually have our laptops. So these keyboards that you see on the screen in front of us are actually our keyboards, but sort of positioned virtually exactly where they are physically with respect to us. So the cameras on the bottom of the Oculus are actually looking at where our keyboards are physically and positioning the virtual one right there. When we look down at our keyboard, we see a pass through to our hands sitting on top of a virtual keyboard. So your hands move at the same rate they would because it's just a camera pass through to your hands. And then we see a virtual screen in front of us, and we can make that screen small or large, and any one of us can project our screen onto the front. I don't know if somebody can do that. My computer is connected right now, but
mine's not.
So, this is a projection of Kevin's actual desktop on his desk, up to the screen on the front, so we can do these sorts of things. So, we can do sort of laser pointering and this kind of thing, like pointing at different things out here. That's part of it.
Right, and then we
I'm in the head. I don't know if they mentioned. Yeah, well, you have to use the whiteboard because that's really cool. I don't know if they mentioned yet, but the headset itself is only $300. So like a lot of the VR headsets that you can get are much more expensive, like up to $1,000. But these are $300 a piece, I think. Really low barrier to entry.
Yeah, let's maybe show the whiteboard because that's kind of an interesting feature and it's something we miss, I think, when we're doing remote work typically.
Like Kevin's going to be our guinea pig.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, unfortunately, me being the first guinea pig means that like my big thing here is surprising people. Not John, but whoa, like surprising people
like that.
Yeah. So I can now immediately be in his personal space.
Yeah. Too close. Too close.
Yeah.
If to us, we actually, when we switch, we actually had to stand up in our room and walk to a pre-designated place in our room that we pre-cleared to be the whiteboard. The whiteboard that's in front of us is actually just open air in our real rooms. But when we kind of like write on the whiteboard here, it provides feedback to your hand that makes you feel like you're writing on a physical surface. So my dog thinks I'm absolutely ridiculous because I'm just waving in the air, right? But to us, it kind of feels like if you just suspend disbelief for a moment, it actually feels like you're writing on a physical surface. And then to everyone else that's sitting at the desk, they can actually bring up the whiteboard on their desk. And so I think John's actually drawing on his desk, but it's showing up over here on the whiteboard.
If you can see, the controller turns into a marker as you get close. So,
it's kind of neat. And this is where I'm saying we really need dog tracking, because in this space here, the dog will like want to sneak up on you, and it doesn't really appreciate the fact that you don't want to do something. But
so Jonathan,
we can throw up.
You both have actually, in the space that you're in at the moment, physically, you've stood up and you're standing next to.
Yeah.
Yep. So my desk,
Yeah.
there's a wall there. My desk is like over there, I think.
Yeah.
And then like there's another room over here.
Yeah.
And then the whiteboard's right here.
So we can throw images up here and play around with them and so forth as well. So that's something you can do as well.
I can certainly see the appeal of this type. What are the downsides?
Downsides are, let's see, technology still needs to probably catch up a little bit. It's still a little rough around the edges at times. Like, for instance, when I connect my Oculus to my Mac, it like freezes every time it wakes up from sleep. So that's kind of a problem. There's, I think that the battery life maybe is a good thing also, because the battery life is not huge. So it kind of caps the amount of time you're going to spend in virtual reality.
Maybe about an hour or so at a time. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it kind of puts a limit on that.
Yep.
The freezing thing, I think, for Tyler, we discovered eventually was around, like, if you try to connect your laptop to your monitor and then also join into the room, then there's funny things that happen with screen resolution and so forth. And you kind of have to remember that, like, the monitor that you have physically doesn't help you in here. You're seeing a virtual monitor that you can scale up to something that's larger. And so there's that interesting potential to have. I think in other apps they have multiple monitors and things like that, so you can just kind of start placing them everywhere. And your laptop doesn't really care.
I would rather the VR room be the display server. Like, I would rather have windows where I can position them on planes in the environment than streaming my desktop as, like taking the pixels of my desktop and, translating it into, a flat image. I would rather have that, where I could put them farther away in three-dimensional space and, make them bigger and have, something up here. And like, I could see myself really using that, but the technology
could put our metrics and stuff up on the wall.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities that, once you kind of break out of this desktop, because it doesn't mean anything anymore. Like in the VR space, your applications that run on your computer don't have the same meaning as a monitor, which, like your world is, encompassed by this monitor, and like it's defined, that the borders of it are defined by your monitor. That's not true anymore. So it doesn't make sense to carry that paradigm forward into VR, but the technology is not there yet in order to support it.
Yeah,
and
I was gonna say, I'd like just a little bit higher resolution, because I mean, you can make your monitor pretty large, but you're still limited to like the pixels that are right up against your eye, right, in the headset. So like, if you're used to having I'm used to having like multiple panes in my terminals and in my editor and stuff. So when I come in here, I really do things more in like single panes, because it's just easier for me to see it that way. And the other thing I think would be nice, though we don't run into this too often, would be like if they had breakout sessions, like if you could like break out into smaller teams, like that kind of thing.
You can't even like, so you see there's corners of the room, like we can't use those really, like I can't say go over there, which is a missing feature in my opinion.
There are some applications where you can do that, you just can't do it here in workrooms.
Okay.
So there, Glue, the work, which is on the apps thing, it allows you to move around, but it's not arbitrary. There's like spots where you can go. So it's sort of a thing that's, I think, coming, but workrooms doesn't allow you to do that.
And
I don't know, did you
course,
mention
the
about the
engineers and all of
door?
us want to know what
I
happens.
was just actually looking for the door.
It's over here. There's steps up.
We had heard that being in an early form of this, they didn't have a door, like an exit. I mean, we could go to a different
let's go to Seattle.
Here.
Future Seattle.
This one, I think this is Future Seattle. And this one, there's actually a door over there that's, in the corner. And I think they said in early versions there was no door, and people would actually freak out a little bit because there was something wrong about being in a room that you just couldn't escape from, or wouldn't
Right.
feel like you could escape from, even though we can't
Mhm.
actually go over that door. So that's a
Right.
kind of
Interesting psychological phenomenon.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We've also had the question is what happens when you put 50 people into this room? Like, does it grow bigger?
Yeah.
Is there a limit? I sure would like to find
I
out.
think that, well,
Yeah.
the
There
limit
has
of
to be a
VR,
limit. I mean,
there is, yeah, the limit of
Yeah.
VR is 16, and then 50 people can join via where you are, Shane.
I
Yeah.
see. I see.
Yeah.
I wonder if that has more to do with the avatars and the the tracking of all of the
Processing
3D
power.
meshes
Probably.
and things
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
With
Limitation.
limited,
Yeah.
limited computing power for parallel processing.
Yeah.
The thing that is slightly disturbing for me is that none of you have anything below the waist.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's definitely I think they're saving computing power on all of
Yeah.
Yeah.
why spend all of those cycles
On legs.
on
Yeah.
legs, right?
I don't know.
That's
It
not
tells
the
you
most
when you
significant
create-
part of it. You do tend to
Right.
not notice it after a while. Like you notice it first, but then you're looking at someone and they're gesturing, and there's the face, and even
Yeah.
though it doesn't track your mouth, it only pretends like it's tracking your mouth because it's based on audio, not based on the actual movement of your mouth.
Mhm.
So, like if I smile, you don't know because it doesn't. You can't tell unless I'm, a tone of voice or something like that. So
Yeah.
Which would also make modeling like legs kind of interesting in terms of like the
Mhm.
motion and what type
Yeah.
of like animation they would use based on your motion. I don't know.
Yeah.
And there are things like when you set down a controller, like your arm can potentially get like twisted.
like all
that's-
backwards and stuff.
yeah.
Especially if you're holding it with the wrong hand.
Yeah,
like,
if you're
it's
holding the
not-
wrong
Or
hand, it gets
cross your-
confused.
Put it across your hands like that. See,
Oh, it still hasn't
Yeah.
figured this out.
Yeah. So there are definitely some distractions, if you will. So like I said, this is just one tool
Yeah.
in our toolbox. We still use Zoom a lot. We use Slack. We see, whatever.
So, the one tool in your toolbox, when would you choose to use this approach, this tool?
I think that the two things that we've used this for the most have been to get in a whiteboard session where we are, in different locations. That's pretty nice. And then the other one is pair programming, which sounds kind of strange, pair programming in virtual reality. And again, I'm like the biggest skeptic of this. When we first started, I was like, nope. But it's surprisingly immersive. And like I said, having one person having their screen up, and then you can use your pointer, and I don't know, it is actually really productive for that.
So it's actually like a slightly different form of pair programming that rather than just being like two people looking at one monitor with one keyboard, one person puts their screen on the front and the other person actually still has their computer screen in front of them if they wish. And it kind of goes like that. And I think maybe it was Pat or somebody at some point I was trying to teach you something in the IDE, and it was actually interesting. He put a screen up there. I actually walked up to the whiteboard and would just point things out, like click here, click here, click here. But, when do you get to be like the same size as your pair's monitor standing next to it and pointing out the thing that you want them to click on? But it's a little bit different, but I would say that's an interesting feature of it. We learned about the whole thing. I'd say we got started in this. I was a big skeptic of this too, but I've long listened to the Stratechery podcast from Ben Thompson. You may have heard this or not, but very rational thinker. And he had an interview once where they were talking about VR versus AR actually. And their hypothesis after seeing this actually was that VR would actually have more immediate application in business than in the the sort of personal sphere, much like the PC did originally. The PC really started in the business, and then individual personal applications were developed second. And with the price point at $300 a headset, it's a third to a sixth of the price of a laptop. It's pretty cheap really for a business to ship them out. It's a low cost investment to get another experience to your team, we actually had, since we do enterprise software, we work with other companies as well. In one case, we had a customer engineer join us in our room and, kind of working on a problem together. And I remember him saying, like, can I just come back in the evening and hang out here? And so, as like a company that's working, especially a small company that's doing enterprise software, the idea of actually having customer engineers come to your space and potentially collaborate together and is obviously an advantage, I would say. Different.
What else surprised you?
So 2 things for me. The hand tracking is almost really good. Is almost really, really good. It's really good, except for when you like cross them or whatever. The other one is, like John mentioned, the mouth movements. So this figures out what I'm saying or how my mouth should move based on the sounds that I'm making and not what my mouth is actually doing. Those 2 things surprised me probably the most. That like I can point at Pat, I can give thumbs up, I can point at people and be like, hey, do you have anything to say about that or whatever? And it's very good because there's like, I don't know what, 12 cameras on this thing that just are used for tracking.
Yeah.
I think the spatial audio was a big amazement too. Like,
yeah. And honestly, I really like the fact that if you're on your computer and trying to type, and while you're, there's no way you can be distracted and people don't know, right? People will see you on your keyboard. I kind of like it. Yeah.
On that same note,
Kyle?
I actually like that for on that same note, I actually like that for presenting in here, because like when you present on Zoom, usually you're sharing your screen. All you see is your screen. If you have the little gallery thing, maybe you see other people. But presenting in here, like, you can really see people's interactions, like you would if you were presenting in an actual conference room. Like just those small subtleties, it's nice to cue off them.
Yep. You could go up to the lectern,
Yep.
and present from up here. I could see this being a sort of hybrid for meetups as well. The presenters sort of, here, whoever can joins virtually, and then everyone else joins like you have, Shane.
Obviously, you are a tech company and getting a lot of value from that. We haven't given you much opportunity to tell us about Moderne. So this is the 2-minute Who's Moderne?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. We do automated source code repair. So we started focusing mostly in the Java ecosystem and infrastructure as code, but we do big heavy lifts like Spring Boot 1 to 2, Java 8 to 11, JUnit 4 to 5, that kind of thing. So think modernizing your applications, but we go and repair the source code itself in a style-preserving fashion, 100% accurate. And then we do that at scale. So our open source product is called Open Rewrite. The core refactoring technology and all the recipes that we write to perform transformations are Apache license. And then as a commercial company, we apply those same recipes at scale to up to hundreds of millions of lines of source code to affect those changes very quickly across an organization. Our belief is that software used to be built from the ground up, and now it's more assembled from components than anything, and that those components are moving out from under us all the time. The APIs are changing, things are being deprecated and removed, and if you don't keep up, your software doesn't keep functioning. So we're trying to help with that.
Thank you very much. If somebody wanted to continue the conversation, ask you more questions about this, where would they find you, Jonathan?
I think the easiest thing to do would be to just go to moderne.io, and my calendar link is a button right there on the front page. So my calendar is wide open to you if you're interested in this or anything else.
Yep. And then the entire team is on a Slack organization that's off of our Open Rewrite. If you go to GitHub and go to Open Rewrite, there's a Slack channel to join, and all of us are always haunt that. So,
yep. Love to see you there.
Thank you so much, folks. Really appreciated this insight into the use of VR in reality.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Shane.
Yeah, thank you so much.